Kia ora, Year 9. In this video I'm going to go through the last 5 questions for the Algebra Practice JAF test. So these are extended abstract thinking questions, and you really have to make sure that you've understood the basic skills very, very thoroughly before you can attack them. I want you to make sure that you set out your working really well, because it's important that we communicate what we're doing when we do maths. It's actually what maths is all about. Even though sometimes it just feels like the teachers are going on at you to show you're working. Yep, well, I'm doing that again. Grab your maths book and a pen, and I want you to try each question before I go through it. I'm going to go pretty slowly, and I'm going to use a whole lot of space. But first, here's a quick overview of what we've got. The first one is an evaluate question. So it's a substitute the values of A and B into the expression problem. Notice that this is going to be testing our BEDMAS understanding. All of that stuff from way back at the start of the year that you thought was pretty easy, it actually has to be followed with quite a lot of fiddly details sometimes. And the second thing to notice here is we've got A and B are both negative numbers, and one of them's a fraction. So there's quite a lot going on. The next two are kind of opposites of one another. One's expand and one's factorise. And then the last 2 questions we'll look at later on. But we have to, well, I'll do it now. We have to figure out what is P that is going to make this statement true, and then what is Q that will make this statement Q. So these are quite unlike individual skills that we've done, but they just build on the easy work that goes before it. Okay, so now let's get into number 40. So question 40 is this: 7a squared b minus 3a cubed minus 4ab squared. And a is negative 2, b is negative a half. So we start by just carefully substituting in. So it's going to be 7 times negative 2 squared, you can put your times signs back in if you want, times negative 1/2, minus 3 times negative 2 cubed, minus 4 times negative 2 times negative 1/2 squared. Right, let's go through and just work out the bracketed parts next. So we've got 7 times 4 times negative 1/2, take away 3 times, now look at this, negative 2 cubed is a negative times a negative times a negative. So that's going to be a negative, and 2 cubed is 8, right? So in here, this bit here is negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. Right? So that gives me negative 8, minus 4 times negative 2 times, now this thing here, negative 1/2 squared is positive 1/4. And this is what your working needs to look like, right? We need to see each little step of the substitution and of the working out. So now what have I got? Well, I've got 28 times negative 1/2. So negative 1/2 of 28 is going to be negative 14. And now I've got take away 3 times negative 8. So that gives me plus 24. Lastly, I've got take away 4 times negative 2 times 1/4. So that's going to give me plus, well, 4 2s are 8, and 1/4 of 8 is 2. So it's going to be negative 14 plus 24 plus 2, which equals 10 plus 2, which gives me a final answer of 12. Now I want to show you what I think is pretty essential working in here and what we could leave out. So let's just go back and have a look. Well, this first line here is absolutely crucial. When we're doing substitution, we really need to see that you've taken the A and you've replaced it with negative 2, and so on. This next line is also crucial if you're not going to make silly mistakes, right? I bet half of you watching this have screwed up some kind of negative or positive, and it's because you're going too quickly. And it's a really, really common thing to do when you're in Year 9. But as you get further through the school, you'll learn that it's sometimes, in fact usually in maths, better to slow down. Then the next line, we also want to have, we don't want to just jump to doing it all in our head, because that's when we're going to make a mistake. The only line in here that you really don't have to have, I reckon, is that one there. Okay, so that's the first question done. Let's go back and have a look at the next question, question 41. So we have to expand that expression. So let's just make it a bit bigger. I'm going to do the working for that now down the bottom of the screen here. So you should try and do this one first. I think this is probably the easiest of these questions. So we've got negative a times ab minus ab squared plus a squared b. So we're testing whether you really understand your index rules. Here, we're going to go negative a times each bit in here. So the first part will be negative a squared b. Then I've got a negative times a negative. So that's going to give me plus a squared b squared. And the last term will be take away a cubed b. Okay, so not too much to that question, only one straight up line of working. The next problem goes the other way around. It's a factorising question. So when we factorise, we have to look for the common factors. And I always do that by first looking at the numbers, at the coefficients, and then I work alphabetically. If we have a system in maths, it means that we're less likely to make silly mistakes. So let's look first here at what the highest common factor is in the A parts. Well, it's just A. Now look at the B parts. We've got B, B squared, and B. So the highest common factor there will be B. Next we've got C, C. I really need a different colour pen. C, C, and C squared. So my highest common factor is C. Altogether, that means the highest common factor is A times B times C. And we focus on what do I have to times by to get everything matching back up. So to get A squared BC, I need to multiply back in an A. To get AB squared C, I have to multiply back in a B. And to get ABC squared, I have to go take away C. And there's no reason to ever get these wrong, because you can expand it back out and check that you get back to where we started with. Okay, so I've got 8 minutes left to do questions 43 and 44. They're both a little bit the same. Let's have a look. We have to figure out what P is. So we've got this thing here. Now, let's look first of all at what we can do to clean this left-hand side up. Well, we know our index rules work like this. So we've got 21 times x squared to the power of 3, which is x to the power of 6. And here we've got y cubed equals 7x y to the power of 6 times something we don't know. So there are a couple of ways to do this. Right, I'm going to show you a way that's got some really, really nice working, and it kind of comes from the next topic we're doing, which is when we solve algebraic equations. Right, and so how do we figure out what P is? Well, we've got all of this. Oh, something disappeared. Hang on, where's all that stuff gone? There, we had y to the power of 6p. So we've got this thing here times P is equal to all of this. So if I said to you we've got 21 is equal to 7x, you'd be able to tell me that x was equal to 3. So what did I do here? Well, I went 7 watts are 21. And we can do this question that way. Or we can say that we went 21 divided by 7 is equal to x. And that's the way that I'm going to do this. So P over here must be equal to this thing here divided by this thing here. And we know how to do the algebra for that, right? Because we did lots of work with simplifying division. Right, so that's what P is going to be. And now we've solved the problem just about, because all I've got to do is a little bit of simplifying. Just clean up the mess from the last question. There we go. So we simplify our numbers, and we have 3. Then I've got x to the power of 6 divided by x, so it's x to the power of 5. And here I've got y cubed here, and I've got y to the power of 6 sitting in the denominator. So remember, that's one where I've got y in the top line, and y in the denominator. And when I simplify, this is what I've got left. I've got y cubed. So that's what we get for p. Alright. Now I want to show you another way that I could have done that question. Just give myself some more space. So that's the best way to do that question, I think. But we could also, if we were having a bit of a moment of freak out, which does happen sometimes in maths tests, right? It's really normal to suddenly feel like you're forgetting what you knew. So here we go. We've got this. Well, we could say that we're going to matching up. We're going to match things up. So matching up, what do we get? Well, on the left-hand side, we're going to clean this up like we did before. We're going to have 21 x to the power of 6 y cubed is equal to 7x y to the power of 6 times what? Well, I need to get my 21 here, so it's going to be times 3. I need to have x to the power of 6 here, so it's going to be x to the power of 5. And this is the tricky bit, I need to have y cubed. I've got y to the power of 6, so it's got to be y cubed like that, down there. Okay, and so that, if you've explained what you're doing and you've said, I'm just going to try and match everything up, and you haven't explicitly done the division, I think that would be fine too. So question 44 is a bit the same. It's just a little bit trickier, but it's the same idea. So again, we're trying to find out the value of q. Right, so q is here, and we've got a thing times q equals a thing over here. So q is going to equal this thing here divided by this thing here. Right. But before we start, we're going to clean up that big messy thing that we've got inside the question. And I mean this. So we've got 4a cubed over b. Now times 3a squared divided by 3a squared is the same as 1 divided by 3a squared. That's how we work with division. Times q is equal to 24a to the power of 4b. Right, and so that's going to simplify things a little bit. Here we've got 4a from these over 3b times q is equal to 24a to the power of 4b. So, what's q? Well, if I want to undo multiplication, I do division. So q will equal 24 a to the power of 4 a to the power of 4 times b divided by 4a over 3b. Now what do we do when we divide by a fraction? Well, we multiply by the reciprocal. So we've got 24 a to the power of 4b times 3b over 4a. And you can see that the problem's getting easier every step of the way. And that's what always happens with algebra. The worst bit is working out where to start. So here, we've got 24 divided by 4 is 6. So we've got 6 coming in now, and I've got a to the power of 4 here, divided by a, so that gives me a cubed times 3b. Giving me, for a final answer, 18 a cubed. Oops, I've lost a b. I've got a b here as well. Oops. B squared. Now, I'm sorry, that was a little bit messy, but this is the very end of a very long video, so I don't really want to go back and clean it up. So there you go. Those last two questions give you something quite tricky to think about, which is that the opposite of multiplication is division. When we're solving equations, sometimes we have to use that idea. Thanks for watching. Send me an email if you're in Year 9 and you've got any questions on those last few.